As it's Mother's Day, or at least it was when I started writing this thing, I'd like to pay tribute to all the great, caring and courageous mother characters in gaming. Well, I'd like to, but it turns out that I'd have to really scrape the barrel just to come up with a top 5. So, what's with the lack of representation? Is this likely to be addressed anytime soon? You see, mothers have been viewed as the nemesis of the gamer ever since they first told us to turn off that console and go to bed. We see them harping on about violence in the media and trying to ban games they've never even considered playing. An advertising campaign called Your Mum Hates Dead Space 2 even tried to capitalise on this, perpetuating the idea that motherhood and gaming are two mutually exclusive concepts. From this, we assume that any game with motherhood as a theme, or a mother protagonist, would instantly be rejected by the average gamer. First of all, who is the average gamer? Well, studies indicate that they might be aged anywhere between their late 20s and mid-30s, so old enough to be parents themselves. It's also estimated that around 47% of gamers are female, though this all depends on your definition of gamer, how you work out an average, and yada 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 other factors. My point is that the audience might not be as far removed from the subject as previously thought. So, is there room for motherhood in gaming? I'm not talking about this, by the way. Until they introduce battle mode, then I fail to see the point. I'm talking about maternity as a universal narrative theme. We've seen a few examples, such as Samara from Mass Effect, who's conflicted between her love for her daughters and her duty as a law enforcer. Then there's Bayonetta, who assumes a kind of maternal role, despite her strict no cockroaches and no crying babies policy. By the way, is it just me, or is it weird that the song she sings as a lullaby is the same one she's pole dancing to in the end credits? Never mind. Apart from that, we could pick out some mums from the rosters of fighting games, but they are usually just minor details from tacked-on backstories. And don't even get me started in Metroid Other M. The baby this, the baby that, it's a sodding galactic jellyfish, Samus. You know, in the right hands, this story might have worked. Swing and a miss, Teen Ninja. At least you'll always have boob jiggle physics. On the other hand, we've seen fatherhood used very effectively, even if it's abstract and the character is technically a father figure as opposed to a biological parent. Take Season 1 of The Walking Dead. Choosing how to interact with Clementine is pivotal to the story. You might try and shield her from all the horrors of the zombie-apocalypse, or be brutally honest with her in the hope that she'll toughen up. Either way, it's down to the player to act in her best interests. Then you've got the dark twist on fatherhood, the Big Daddies, a role that the player is forced into at least once in both Bioshock 1 and 2. The little sisters of Rapture are psychologically conditioned to trust the daddies implicitly. Players can choose whether to exploit this trait or to cure it and rescue the girls. I've had some great conversations with fathers who've played these games. They were quick to channel their paternal instincts into their Walking Dead playthroughs, and when I asked about harvesting little sisters, some of them were genuinely horrified. One guy answered, "How could I hurt them? I'm a father." The emotional impact is by no means lost on players without kids of their own. Being placed in a position of care and making choices on a youngster's behalf can be a powerful experience for those of us who've never been in that role. And if this is true of playing the father, then surely this would work for mothers too. Have we seen the potential of the mother protagonist in other media? Absolutely. Look at Ripley in Aliens and how badass she gets with those maternal instincts. Also, her battle with the Alien Queen, that's essentially a showdown between two mothers. Then there's the bride from Kill Bill, a ruthless assassin hell-bent on avenging her child. She remains a sympathetic character, regardless of how many limbs she severs. That doesn't mean that all mother figures have to be sword-slinging militia bitches just to counter the weak feminine stereotypes. Think of Mrs. Brisby in The Secret of Nim. That's a story about an average person, or mouse, who embarks on a dangerous quest, not for fortune, not for glory, but in the hope of saving her son's life. I'd probably give the sequel a miss, though. So, game developers, bring on the hero mums. Create a scenario that invokes the primal urge to protect. Let us experience the inner conflict involved in making the right decisions with no one to guide us. Show us the overwhelming force of unconditional familial love. If George R.R. Martin has taught me anything on the subject, it's that the mother and the warrior are two faces of the same god. Well, that's one more thing than this guy knows.